There's a set of
Cindy, you ready? All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the Coastal Resources Management Council semi-monthly meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, October 24, 2023. Our first matter is I'd ask that the record reflect the council members that are present, as well as staff members of CRMC that are present here this evening, along with our attorneys. First matter is approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. I know Lisa had sent them out relative to October 10, 2023. I would ask if there's any questions, or if not, entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
move approving or approve. So moved.
A motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion carries. Subcommittee reports or staff reports, Mr. Willis.
There are no subcommittee reports, Mr. Chair. I do have one item and a staff report for the council. Just to bring you up to date on CRMC's participation in a legislative committee on cohogs. Legislature set up a committee that is studying the effects of decreased catch of cohogs in Narragansett Bay. CRMC is a legislative member who sits on with other members, so appointed. Today, we had a meeting of the commission, our second meeting, where we had two presentations, both from DEM, one from the fisheries section. Dr. Connor McManus talked to us about the status of cohogs in Narragansett Bay and how their life cycle exists in the bay and how other factors might affect them. And then we heard from Joe Haberek, who's an engineer that deals with the RIPTES program, which is the discharge elimination program, and how water quality requirements under that program are looked at for discharges in Narragansett Bay. And then a discussion ensued on how those two programs, while they have disparate objectives, might have effects on cohog management. So I'll keep you up to date on our future meetings with that commission as well. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. First matter on our agenda will be an application requiring a special exception before the full council for review and action on a final decision. That would be 2023-04-094. Rhode Island Department of Transportation. If the parties are ready, they can come forward. Anyone here from DOT?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we saw people walk in.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Are you the only person from RIDOT?
From right on, yes.
Okay.
Actually, I do have somebody else with me. It depends on what you're gonna ask. I may need the consultant,
All
Why
right,
don't you bring them up?
the consultant or the other party from DOT.
I'd say bring them both.
Yeah, whoever you want up, and while they're coming up, I'm gonna read into the record. It's an application for the reconstruction of the East Bay bike path bridges over the Barrington River and Palmer River, including the installation of new piers, abutments, truss spans, riprap, scour protection, stormwater management. The project requires special exceptions. The CRMC Red Book 650-RICR-20-001, sections 1.3.1 L3C. There's alterations to coastal wetlands not designated for preservation adjacent to Type 3 Waters, section 1.3.1 M2A, the construction of new public transportation facilities in tidal waters, and section 1.3.1 G3C, the filling on a coastal feature or tidal waters. Variances are required for CRMP sections 1.3.1 B, 3A, 6, filling rather than cutting on causeway slopes, and section 1.3.1 B, 3E, 1, AA, filling on slopes steeper than 15%. And if you could identify yourselves for the record, please.
I'm Lori Fassett. I'm the administrator for the Division of Project Management at RIDOT.
I am Lauren Doyle. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Rhode Island Department of Transportation.
Jeff Klein, I work for VHB, or a consultant on the project for RIDOT.
Okay, please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Amy?
We do.
Starting from left to right, please state your name and spell it for the record.
Lori Fassett, LORIFISSETTE.
Lauren Doyle, LORENDOYLE.
Jeff Klein, JEFFKLEIN.
All right, Amy has this one for staff. If you could give us a report, please.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As noted in the introduction, this application is.
Excuse me, could you speak up, because we're very interested in this issue, and I would like to speak after this, but we need to hear what you're saying.
Yes. The application is a Category B application to replace the two bike path bridges over the Barrington and Warren Rivers. The demolition of the two existing bike path bridges was permitted in the spring under a Category A ascent by CRMC, file number 2023-05-055. For this particular application, the DEM water quality certification and the Army Corps of Engineers have already been issued. No comments were received during the public notice period. However, comments have been received in recent weeks, and I will elaborate on that. The application requires two variances, one to section 1.1.9 for setbacks, and one to section 1.3.1 B3, filling and cutting on shoreline features. The application requires 3 special exceptions. 1 to section 1.3.1 G3C for filling on a coastal feature or in tidal waters. There's 2 types of filling, riprap for the abutments, as well as some coastal wetland fill. A special exception to section 1.3.1 M2A for new transportation facilities in public waters. And the 3rd special exception to section 1.3.1 L3C for alterations to coastal wetlands not designated for preservation adjacent to type 3 waters. The filling within the coastal wetland impact has been mitigated by removing all of the temporary fill associated with previously approved path work for the detour that was put in over a year ago, as well as for the access bulkheads. Those temporary fills will be removed and the areas will be completely restored. In addition, there will be approximately 2,610 square feet of wetland replication. It is staff's opinion that the variance criteria has been met for both of the variance requests. Staff has concerns regarding the special exception request, however. The concern is specific to special exception section 1.1.8 A1A, the criteria to provide access to the shore for broad sections of the public. The primary concern involves the fishing access on the bike path bridges. The original report from the DOT stated that there was an intent to prohibit fishing and stated that the design of the bridges was not conducive to fishing. Pardon me, staff questioned the applicant regarding this prohibition of an existing public use of structures and cautioned that this was worrisome given the special exception request. The report was then rewritten and resubmitted with a wording change to state the intent was not to prohibit fishing, but provides no further details or changes to the design that was originally noted as not conducive to fishing. DOT compared the lack of the prohibition on the new bike path bridges to the nearby Route 114 bridge, which is not prohibited for fishing and is frequently used. Staff noted that the bridge is not an equal comparison, as the bridge is a highway bridge with sizable and probably ADA compliant sidewalks. The current design for the 2 bike path bridges allows for only 2 feet of clearance on either side of the bike path itself. Staff has questioned DOT on what the use of this narrow 2-foot area would be, specifically in regards to the truss system and the bridge construction, but has received no reply to date. Staff defers to the council on the special exception criteria. As to the public comments, in recent weeks, we have received comment from local boaters utilizing the nearby Atlantic Marine Marina, which is located on the east side of the Barrington River, south of the bike path and north of Route 114. These boaters have commented on what they see as dangerous increased tidal flow conditions. The proposed new bridge over this span of the Barrington River will have no pilings in the river. The owners of the marina have repeatedly requested to meet with DOT to discuss their client concerns to date, and to my knowledge, no meeting has yet occurred. Additionally, each council member saw when they arrived tonight an objection from the New England chapter of the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, which came in, I believe, yesterday, regarding their concerns over the fishing access and requesting that the council require fishing access if they are to approve the application. That is the summary.
Thank you. Any questions of council members of Amy? Mr. Flynn?
Amy, and forgive my voice, I have a cold. I'll do the best I can. Is it, in your experience, when you ask a sister agency for input. Is it typical that, it seems from your report that you, and for the most part, ignored? Is that a common?
I don't know if I would use the word ignored, but it is common to receive responses.
I have more questions, but I'd like to hear the write-up presentation.
Okay.
Um,
Proceed.
Honestly, we weren't prepared to do a presentation. We were here to answer if there was a specific question. I can comment based on what
Could you
the,
speak up a little, please?
what Amy, relayed to the committee. There's a few differences from what we've been informed by our staff. If that's okay, permissible, then I.
Absolutely, that's fine.
Okay, so I am aware,
Oh, I'm sorry.
is that okay?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. So I do know that, we have been in contact, we have an outreach gentleman that, has been in contact with the owners of the marina. We additionally had Representative Knight as part of that communication and, had agreed with him that he would be the conduit by which we would have any communication. So that I know has been an ongoing dialogue. I know that there have been requests to meet in general, and the department made the decision that until we heard back from CRMC on the status of the permit, we really didn't have much more to offer other than the same response that I think Amy relayed, which is we have not approved or accepted a design that did restrict any fishing on the bridge that is set to be rebuilt. I'm not sure what other question was, I'm sorry. So if there was.
Mr. Flynn, do you have
Amy,
particular
Mr.
questions?
Well, let me start with this. How wide was the previous bridge?
I don't know if I have any, yeah, what's the width of the original bridge?
But you're gonna have to stop, sir.
Yeah.
Stop. Because the stenographer doesn't know who the gentleman is that's answering
I
that
can speak on
question.
his behalf if he gives me a number. That's okay.
Or can
Well,
we-
she
Well, I can
trans-
have him sworn in.
Can we?
Yeah,
bring him
you can bring him up.
As well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Grab a chair, sorry.
Yeah.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So help you God?
I do.
State your name and spell it for the record.
Andrew Prezioso, ANDREW, PREZIOSO.
And can you just, for the record, give your position with the DOT?
I am not at the DOT, I'm with VHB.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so the original bridge that's being demolished currently has two 4-foot sidewalks raised, elevated from a 10-foot clear path. So all in all, it's 18 feet wide. Yeah.
So I guess the basic question is, why is this bridge only 14 feet wide?
I can answer that. The bridge that is proposed is threading the needle essentially between tide requirements to provide clearances and the overhead utilities that need to remain in place, which requires a certain type of bridge that is allowed to be launched into place, which basically means it's slid longitudinally into place. That bridge itself has a limitation on how big it can be in order to accommodate the moving of the bridge, and that limitation allows for only a 14-foot wide clearance between the approximately 14-foot wide clearance between the rails.
So your testimony is that it's not physically possible to build a bridge that would be 4 feet wide, sidewalks on either side.
It's some of that is related to economics as well. I mean, this is a standard bridge. Something more custom that would be double the price would potentially be an issue as well. I don't know the order of magnitude of the price.
And your 2-foot sidewalks, are they elevated or not?
No,
They are not elevated. And you don't see any potential conflicts in people only having 2 feet, which is like my 2 feet, one in front of another. To stand along the edge, you don't think that's gonna cause conflicts?
one of the issues with a 2-foot sidewalk, if it were elevated, you would have some issues potentially with someone stepping off accidentally.
Oh, I totally agree. with that.
The level
People will
platform-
fall off because
Yeah,
it's not big enough.
Yeah, the level platform provides more equitable access.
Let me ask you this, what would stop the design from being 4 feet wide on one side and no feet wide on the other side? So at least on one side of the bridge, you would have an elevated sidewalk that people could fish off of. Is that feasible?
We'd have to evaluate it. It's something that could be feasible. There are some drawbacks as to, from a bicycle perspective, typically you would like to have, a striped edge of the bicycle pathway so that a user would have the opportunity for their handlebars to not rub up against the bridge, for example. So there's some safety concerns there that we have to take a look at.
Well, I'm concerned about handlebars not brushing up against people fishing.
Absolutely.
I think frankly, I think your design is setting up conflicts. I think it's a recipe for conflict.
Any other questions from council members at this time?
It's just a
Mr.
comment
Gomez.
on the, I had the same question relative to putting the sidewalk as a 4-foot sidewalk on one side. But fishermen, I don't think would be too happy with that because of incoming and outgoing tides. When the tide changes, you usually shift to the other side of the bridge. So I think, that you'd restrict the fishermen to fishing half the
Well, I
time.
think it'd be less restricted than no fishing.
Yeah, so I understand that, but
So
it just seems.
I think it's a good solution. But I was just trying to think of, is there any way, if we're being told through testimony that it's not feasible to design a bridge the same width as the bridge that had been in service for many, many years, and I understand that the foundation of the bridge is totally different, I get that. Although I really couldn't tell from what was submitted to us the details of the bridge design. The submission that we received was really impossible to read. That's why I have these questions about, is it an elevated sidewalk? That should be obvious.
Any further questions at this point?
I'm just wondering if because of the current, would you really have fishing on only one side when in fact the current might dictate which side of that bridge people would prefer to fish on? So you almost need 2 sides because of the current coming and going? No?
Yeah, the current goes in both directions, so yes, I would defer to the fisher.
So the current flow will dictate which side of the bridge people would prefer to fish on, correct? So one side only for fishing would not make a lot of sense, in my mind.
The flood.
Be an estimate of the total cost for these bridges. I know they haven't been put out to bid, but you must have a ballpark.
They have been put up to bid.
They have been. This design has been put up to bid on the
It's already awarded, it's a contract that's already awarded as a design.
contract's been awarded.
Yes, and we're already in the demolition phase. of the
Demolition,
project.
I understand. I don't understand the awarding of a contract where this body has taken a vote on the project.
The contract was awarded as part of the design build, and the demolition was the first phase of that.
What is the cost, please?
I want to say it was around 17 million, but I would have to look at the exact cost.
And do you have any idea what it would cost to have 2 more feet on either side?
I do not right now.
Further questions of the 4 individuals in front of us right now? Is there anyone else present this evening that wishes to speak in favor of the application? All right, I'm gonna open it up to public comment right now for anyone to come forward and speak as it relates to the special exception criteria as well as the variances sought. So if you guys can return back to your seat, we'll have public come up and speak, and then I'll have you guys come back up at the end. By show of hands, how many people intend to speak? Okay, it's easy. We'll start here and go across. Come forward.
Okay, first of all, I'm Jane Manella, and this is my husband, Stephen Manella, and we're the ones that own the marina. We live at the corner of County Road and New Meadow Road. And we own the property and we own the marina, Atlantic Marine.
Excuse me, Ms. Minella,
Oh,
let me swear you in. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, Mr. DeSisto.
Well, thank you. Please, state your name and spell it for the record.
Jane, Manella, Mainella. My husband is Stephen with a PH. He may have to step in. We've owned this property. We've been living there for 44 years. And we've owned and operated the marina. So in that time, we've lived through the Barrington Bridge reconstruction, tearing down. We are not against the replacement of the East Bay Bike Path Bridge over the Barrington River. We are not against it. But because we, more than anyone else, we want it completed. And we would really like that detour that surrounds our house, our property removed because our fences and our car have been damaged by bikers. And it has devalued the assessed value of our property. But our concerns with the reconstruction plan of the bike path bridge over the Barrington River, we have concerns. I thought you were going to have someone here to explain what is going to be on either side. But so we noticed that after in fact, I've got some handouts here and I'd like to, I'm not sure who's gotten these. I have, first of all, some letters from our voters.
Hold on for just a second. Have those been previously submitted?
Yes, they've been emailed to quite a few people.
To staff?
Oh, yes.
Amy, are they in the
Amy's
packet?
had them?
I believe they were put in the package. when we
Well,
put
I
the
got a
package
few more
together.
too.
Okay, there's an issue with that because, there's the deadline to submit. You can certainly testify to what they say.
But I can't have handouts.
No,
Okay. So
They're
maybe
the-
I can just show
They're
you.
in the end of the package.
but they're in what you've already
I
submitted
have
as part of the
pictures
packet.
Current. Okay, so I could just show that. If you are interested in a handout, I can leave these. I also have emails and responses from Alyssa Richardson. Is she here tonight? She's the one who is looking for the assent of this. Is she present? Her name is on the name's on that, but. So these are some of the emails that I've sent to her. I mean, I can read them to you, so I won't give them out. I can read it to you. And then I have a picture of our property with the orange and white barriers going around it. And some of our fences that have been shown where the marina is between the bridges. This is from Google Maps, and this was July 2023, before the demolition of the East Bay Bike Path Bridge. So I have those, and you can help yourself. I'll leave some of those there. But our biggest concern is that the changes that have already happened because of the demolition of the old bike path bridge over the Barrington River, we need to have those corrected in this plan, in this design. And The changes are the dangerous volume and speed of the outgoing tidal currents. They have whirlpools. And it's now, the current is now angled directly at the marina since the pilings have been pulled out. And then this current is lasting for about 5 hours. And our boaters, when they're trying to get out of their slips or into their slips, it's much different than before. One of our boaters, can I read some of these? I wanted to write to you both, letting you know about some changes I have observed down at the marina since the old bike path bridge was torn down. The removal of the pilings has created some large changes to the current, both in the direction that it flows, as well as the speed at which it flows. As you know, I've had my boat at your slips for 5 years now, going out almost daily every season. Consider myself very familiar with the waters around the marina. And one of the reasons that I've enjoyed keeping my boat there is the calm, protected dockage. The current would flow fast at times, but always well out to the middle of the pre-existing channel and would continue on under the center span of the next bridge. This left the docks protected and the waters pretty calm. With the removal of the bike path bridge, the current no longer flows in the center of the channel, but is now angled directly at the marina, unobstructed as it flows from upriver. This can be observed both down on the docks as well as by boats coming up from the river. The increased swell of these passing boaters has led to a dramatically different condition. I've had to change the way I secure my boat. I'm sorry, I skipped this. It's actually a no wake zone, but if the boat's coming through in the no wake zone, they lose their steerage and they've been heading into the Barrington Bridge. This person has to put more lines to secure his boat. Let me see what else. Yep, so he's observed a few boats caught sideways in the rapid current and pushed into the existing bridge, causing damage. Another one, this is one of our boaters actually hit the Barrington Bridge when he came out from his slip. And he turned around the middle of Police Cove, proceeded south. And he was going about 3.5 knots. But he felt the tide shift his boat as he attempted to steer through. Then other people here who are on like the header slips, they're afraid for their family. This one has a 6-year-old. If the child falls off that boat, it's a dangerous situation and the child's at risk. Another person, you put in the red right return markers and the green markers. People have been calling 911 from the Barrington Bridge because they think a person is drowning in the water because those markers are going completely under the water in the tide, and then they're bopping a little bit up. And I've seen every rescue and every fire truck down there because people think someone's drowning. So the current is pretty strong there. Anything else here? Also, I have a letter from the harbor master, and he's gone out there. He's been in touch with DOT and he checks the conditions. And in his letter, he says, I have found that your marina has definitely been affected by the removal of the pilings on the bridge. Now, when you think of it, this problem is going to increase in the winter with the northwest wind blowing and the large ice flows that always come down the river. They would break up on the pilings on the bridge, but now they're going to come straight through and they could take out our pilings, our docks, and they can go right straight through down to Stanley's Marina and the other marinas down there. I think that's a real concern that there's no place for them to break up. So I thought someone would be presenting what the pilings, the footings were gonna be looking like with this replacement bridge, so we'd have an idea if we're gonna be safe this winter or we're gonna lose the marina. We're already being harmed by the changes that have happened. And I don't know if you have a study there that you can show us how you're gonna mitigate or reduce the damage to our property and marina. So that there are any further changes to harm us or to harm our livelihood. It will be tangible harm, as shown in some of the voters' letters, who are saying they're not going to be able to come back. We think that a further study is required if it's left like it is. And it's, you know, effectively taking of our business if you don't do anything. And we've been requesting the engineering reports or the environmental reports, and no one has gotten back to us on it. So I'm not sure if there are any reports that have been done. I know that last Friday, someone was out there with sounding the bottom, and I don't know if that was in, because I sent out some emails. I don't know if you know about that. But we're looking for an alternative plan, something that would be a suitable option for everyone, because we do want this bridge to go take the bikers back where they had been. And we thought if you could extend the land mass by about 150 feet on the east side, our side, and cut back the land mass on the west side over near Police Cove. And you know, actually, when the Barrington Bridge was being done, you put in 2 or 3 more arches, and those arches were there to slow down the water. And we were told that as soon as the bike path was done on the west side, Police Cove, that side would be cut back about 200 feet to slow the water down so it could go through those new arches that had been placed in the Barrington Bridge. I don't know if you recall that. This is the only picture we have of the design, and it's got things that go like this. I don't know if you've seen
We
this
have
one.
Amy?
Have you
Is
seen that
that-
one? You know where we got this one from. But that's not going to support that current. And I guess that brings us now to the, you know, unless you have a different plan, we strongly object to what's proposed, but we thought we'd have more information tonight on what was proposed. This morning, someone from the US Coast Guard in Boston, the bridge, what did he say? He was he says the Boston Bridges, Jeffrey Stieb, S-T-I-E-B. He called us to find out what's going on. And he said that he was going to wait to see what came out of this meeting before they could address issues. So I told him what was happening with us. And actually, and really, all of this has just happened. But we really need a corrective plan to be put in place as soon as possible to redirect that dangerous current from our property and our marina. And now you say the new bridges, this is the first time we've heard the new bridge isn't going to be as wide. So we did have, someone did meet with us, I think it was like June 30th. Couple of James Pratt came down there. Andres from Etna Bridge, and someone else, I'm not sure who it was. But they were saying to us that that the new bridge was going to have a 10-foot clearance, which is good for the boaters up the river. And the approach, because of this, the approach to the replacement bridge would be about 4 feet higher and it would need more riprap, but now you're saying it's not gonna be as wide. I don't know why you're gonna need more riprap, but he said it's gonna be placed, and this was at the end of the meeting, he said, and they were about walking away, and they said, well, some more riprap is going to be placed here. And the riprap would be down, we're hoping that sheathing would be placed on the property line, so the riprap wouldn't slide into the water and further reduce our boaters' ability to dock their boats at the slips in this established dock system. So we have a lot of questions, and we came tonight thinking that we would have answers to those questions.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there for a second.
Yep.
And I'm gonna ask my fellow council members if they agree that we need some more answers here. And I'm inclined to continue this matter so that DOT can come back. I want to see some diagrams. I want to see something put up showing what they're going to put up so that the audience can see it. And when a question is posed, they can point to it and say, this answers that question, this doesn't answer that question, or I think there needs to be a little bit more as far as evidence, factual, I mean, the demonstrative evidence, if you will, some plans and that. I myself don't feel comfortable. I myself thought it was gonna be more of a presentation. I've had an opportunity to review the application. I've seen the pictures here. I mean, we rely on Amy's review, absolutely, and not of staff. But I know you're hitting some questions that we don't have answers to. And I think before we make a decision, your questions should be addressed, and maybe they will have answers for you that will answer the questions that you have and give you some information. So
I concur.
Yeah.
With that feeling, and they brought up some very viable, realistic scenarios.
We're living
Make
with
me
it
wanna-
daily.
Make me wanna think more about it, so a continuance would be, I think, a correct thing to do.
so
We went down to CRMC in, well, after Labor Day weekend, about a fourth of the pilings had been taken out. And it was a 5.6 tide. And the tide was such that during the boating hours, the tide was going out. And so it made us aware that there was a very big problem there. And we saw Lisa Turner, we went down there and spoke to her.
all right, I'm gonna stop you there because we are gonna, I think we're gonna make a motion to continue. Gentleman's raising his hands. I'll
Yes, I just,
real quick, if you want to say something.
Sir,
Could you
come on up. Come on
just
up.
identify yourself for the
my
record?
name's Owen O'Rourke, OWEN, OROURKE.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir. She's painting a good picture, but it was well over 100 pilings in this bridge. So when you were at one end of the bridge, it was built to carry heavy trains. So there were a lot of pilings. When you look at the bridge from one end, there was a little opening, but there wasn't, you couldn't go so many feet and see all the way through. So once all those pilings came out, it was like a sieve. The water would hit that, slow down, would back up and come through. It was come through in a smooth motion. Now that those are all gone, can I use the blackboard for a second just to kind of, I just want to show you the river runs similar to this. The bridges are right here. Train bridge was right here. Well, train bridge was right here. So here's where the marina is, right here. But once all these pilings in here came out, everything wants to go here. So this is where the marina is. When she tells it, it doesn't show you what's happening, but the river actually bends and they're straight there. So the land comes out a little over here, but over here it comes way out. They put extra arches in, which makes total sense to me. If you remove some of this, you're gonna stop that bottleneck and it's gonna use the arches. Right now, it's basically going through this arch and this arch. It's not even using these arches over here. This should have came over here further. But the way this, from what I understand, the way that the bridge would have been designed is once you open this up and you have these extra arches down here, if more was open, the water would come out more uniform and actually slower. It wouldn't be rushing through the little bottleneck right here. So I have a 19.5 foot boat, which is bigger than most of the boats upstream. The people upstream haven't come down here yet because it happened at the end of the season. But when my 19.5 foot boat, I have to give it gas, a lot of gas to get through here. These little boats aren't gonna make it back up if they're coming in at an out tide, which they used to be able to do. A Zodiac won't make it, period. We've seen Zodiacs fighting the tide, but they just can't get back up there. So, and another thing with the sidewalks and the fishing, you got a lot of little kids fishing with fishing rods. Someone's gonna get a rod in the eye. We know something's gonna happen. When you have that much room to fish, you have buckets and everything. It's just, it really has to be looked at
All
again.
right, thank you. I think, I don't want to say the objectors, but the concerns are put on the table. So I would ask DOT to, take a look at that, and when you come back, address those in a presentation to us, because I can see by nodding, fellow council members do have some questions. So I'm going to entertain a motion to continue the matter, to address some of the concerns and do a presentation. Mr. Gomez.
I will make that motion, but I would think that somewhere a list of these questions should be written out so that they are addressed, the fishing issue, the 2 foot versus 4 foot, the pilings, there's a whole bunch of things that came up. We would like to get them all addressed, I think, somehow, so we need to document it.
Well, 2 points. The first point is, I think, staff report does have some questions on those issues. But secondly, and I think more importantly, what we should do is have the transcript forwarded to RIDOT because of the excellent presentation we had from Jane Minella, this gentleman here.
I have a question too.
Oh, hold on. This gentleman here, so that they can see the questions that were raised and address them in that fashion.
I concur. But
I still have one more thing.
Wait, we're not gonna get.
For us
stop,
now this
stop.
winter.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
Did you make that motion?
I did.
Motion to continue.
All right, is there a second? Motion has been made and seconded to continue the matter. Any discussion from the council?
Yes, all of the issues, particularly the width of the sidewalk, the current affecting the fishing, and somehow memorialize in the permit process that fishing is permitted, not. It has to be memorialized in some fashion other than just reflecting the intention to allow fishing.
Yes.
I think that's just one of the issues that needs to be documented.
All right.
Perhaps,
I think your idea is correct, that we use the minute, not the minutes, but.
okay, and sometimes what happens is, you're in a public setting and you have some questions and you leave the meeting and you say afterwards, I should have asked this, or what about that? So I think it's also appropriate to have any of the interested parties, because I don't think they're objectors. By the way, the Manellas, they've got a difficult situation because of the bike path constructed as it is now. When you come over, the bikers have to take a 90-degree turn right in front of their property. They have I believe there's two openings there for their parking area. So this temporary thing is a direct impact for them landward. So if anybody has any other questions, direct them to Lisa Turner by way of email, so that can be forwarded to DOT too.
All right.
Can she get a copy of the impact statement too? The paperwork she was asking for?
Whatever we have is a public document and it's all available.
But I've been
Wait,
asking
just hold on.
everyone.
We have a motion and it's been seconded, and I was just asking for discussion from the council. Mr. Flynn.
Yes, I think one of the issues that might come up is, I'm not sure what the schedule is for the new bridge construction. But is there possibly going to be a need for some sort of interim measure to slow down the tidal action until the full construction can be done? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question. So I think it's a legitimate question.
It is, that's outside of CRMC jurisdiction, but not outside of DOT's jurisdiction. I'm sure there's some temporary things that they can do to alleviate the situation for the Minellas Marina.
Is someone here from DOT?
Yes.
Yeah, there was a whole panel.
Oh, right there?
Yeah.
All right, the motion made and seconded. I am going to pull the council. Mr. Brusolino?
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon?
Aye.
Mr. Flynn?
Aye.
Mr. Izzy?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
I too, Raymond McCoy, vote aye. So the matter will be continued. You will receive a new date and have an opportunity to address the concerns that have been raised. Thank you.
Take a short break to let everybody walk out because there's more people in it.
I want to speak.
All right.
I'd like to say something.
You can, but I gotta tell you, this is not the end of it. You have a chance to say something when it comes back.
Yeah, but I'd like to say one thing also, because, I mean, announcement who I am, and then you know what I want to say. Okay, I'm Paul Silva. I've owned my property 60 years, and I own the red building.
Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please state your name and spell it for the record.
My name is Paul Silva, J Silva, and I live at 2 County Road, Barrington. And
Is it Paul J. Silva?
Paul J Silva. And I've owned the property 60 years. And I bought it from the art gallery. But it's on Thames Street, Newport. And I bought property, my mind was to make the apartment upstairs for my mother. She lived there until she went to a nursing home. Now I'm living up there. And I've gone through a lot of stuff. I've already lost control of one boat. Hit the old bridge, I was saved. This other bridge, I had a little cat boat. I went underneath the bridge, broke the mast. My mother was screaming and hollering. I said, shut up and let me get the motor started. I'll get out. And it's like the current is really bad on my bridge. And like I deal with all night long fishing people on my bridge. And I just like, they're always now coming in my yard. I had to put a little sign up. I had, don't come on my property and fish. Because, I mean, if they fall in the water, no one's gonna know they're there. There's all stuff like that. The other big issue that I have is there's a hole in the bridge and the water keeps coming into my soil. And Jason Knight's been in my property, Malik Salika, he came into my property. My brother-in-law was a contractor. He ran bulldozers. He was the one that ran all the landfills in East Providence. And he's the one helping me in that property, put it all together. I brought up that foundation because the building goes back to 1860. It was the Doobie Bridge. And I have foundation cement, 3 feet of cement that brought the floor up. It's not a crawl space, but I bang my head every time. I know the floor. And I have a sub pump on this side that's this big, and I have a normal one near the bridge. But it's like when it floods, I help myself. But the last flood we had, I had a foot of water and I couldn't get the water out of the cellar. I mean, there's a lot of antiques in the cellar and a lot of it's, I'm going through now and cleaning it up and throwing it out. I wish someone would correct that problem with the bridge. And the other thing they did, when they put the bridge in, all the wall that my brother-in-law put in, all that whole wall fell down. That whole wall is a mess now over there. And you see a dock there, but it's not a dock, it's only a look like a dock. I mean, I know the difference because I already had lots of experiences on that harbor. And at one point, the kids used to jump up off the bridge on a tire tube and they'd end up at the wharf tavern. That's what they would get a big kick out of that thing. And my mother would call me up, "Ma, Paul, get over here, get over here." I'd have to go over there and watch the kids. Hey, kids, you're gonna drown. There's a current that pulls straight down over there, but you know, it's a start. But I'm concerned about what's happening on my bridge, and I'm really glad that they're gonna do the bicycle path and make it look whatever. But like I didn't even realize what's going on about the width of it and the ability for the fishing people to do. Because right now, at 3 o'clock in the morning, they're all underneath the bridge going with flashlights and they're trying to fish off the pier that's been knocked down and they're over on my bridge, and you know what happens to me at 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's a bump on the bridge. At 3 o'clock in the morning, these trailer trucks and everything come 25 miles an hour through town. And when they get over the Barrington Bridge, they've done it. They go all the ways over, there's a bump. 3 o'clock in the morning, my dogs jump up in the air and go screaming because they think something's going crazy on the bridge again. I've already said that to the commission that's doing the bridge. They don't care about it.
That's a ride-out issue. You should talk to the ride-out personnel.
I did, I've said that. I've gone over there, I've said it, and they gave me a telephone number to call. And I called the number, they don't do nothing. And I haven't got the names of all the people that have been there. I have the pictures of the building when they were fly fishing with the crane. They ruined the whole upstairs of the building.
Right.
I have all the pictures of the skylight. I have the skylight still in the back of the back building. Everything has been destroyed upstairs when my mother was in the nursing home, and they came over. Look, oh, she's a fucking pig. She was my.
Whoa.
She says, that's what they said. Anyway, she was a pig. There was dust all over the house. She was in a nursing home and the place was empty upstairs.
Okay, Mr. Silva, that's more appropriate for the next hearing.
I'm sorry.
We've actually continued this one now.
That's what they said to me
Understood.
when they all came in to look at what they did with the flagpole.
Now it's time to get to the next hearing.
Yeah, okay.
All
I
right,
just
thank
hope
you, sir.
someone pays attention to what all the trouble I'm going through with the bridge I have there.
Oh, is the current worse now?
Oh, the current's getting worse. I mean, I'm watching these kids are going up the river. They have to experiment what's going on there.
We've already continued the application. We've heard
I know
about
that,
the things.
but I'm scared when I see a kid.
We gotta address that next
There's
time.
3 or 4 people this year, they got with a kayak, they got wrapped around there. But anyways, all right, I just want to let you know where I'm coming from, the craziness that's going on with the building.
All right, thank you, sir. I'll take like a two,
No, done. Look, we continued it. We gotta move on to the next one. Okay?
How many people are here on that particular case? Just a few, all right.
No, these are the guys from the first one. This isn't the second one.
I understand, I've done, because
Okay.
I was gonna allow people an opportunity to leave if they want to, before I jump on the other one.
What's the next case?
Van Hemmerlich, Point Judith Pond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone
you all.
want these handouts or am I not allowed to leave them?
You can leave them now. Give them to Amy.
Okay, I hope people will take them.
Wait till Pauline Woods knows that I've seen you tonight.
Ellery said, "Huh?"
File that was on.
At the beach, every day I have to talk to her because I walk the dogs down the beach.
It was where? It was on our website.
We're gonna take a 2-minute break.
We can, you want to? All right, we'll take a couple-minute break.
It was PDF on our.
It was tough.
On our calendar. Yep.
Spread it out on ASAP. And I said, I'll do it in the left.
Yep. Stay there too. Because I appreciate it. Really.
We're gonna just clean up the matter, our last matter, 22-0255, Karen McGinnis. It's an order to restore for unauthorized earthwork, etc. And I'm gonna call on Mr. Willis just to report on the status of that.
The enforcement matter that was originally scheduled for tonight, Mr. Chair, has been continued. The applicant, for lack of a better word, has just retained legal counsel. Literally, I think on Friday afternoon or Monday morning. And for that reason, for that legal counsel to get up to speed on the matter, we thought that that was reason enough to continue it to a date certain, which will be set momentarily, shortly after this meeting.
All right, thanks. So that one's being continued, which leaves us with one last matter. An application that's been out to public notice before the council for review and action, 2020-05-083, Andrew Van Hemmerich. 2 aquaculture farm sites, 1 primary at 0.55 acre site and a 0.05 acre winter storage site. The cultivation of oysters and quahogs using submerged gear in Point Judith Pond, Narragansett, Rhode Island. This one. Ben, let's get this one for staff. And Mr. Himmelrick, if you'd like to come forward as staff is presenting to us, you could do so.
All right. Evening, council. This is an application for aquaculture farm in Point Judith Pond. It is type 2 waters, and it is in the shallow sandy flats just west of Great Island. Variances. You wanted to turn to page 20 of the package. You will see a overview map provided by the applicant in the application. I give the general location of this farm. As you mentioned, there are 2 sites involved with this farm. One is the primary site, which is 0.55 acres. Nearby is the winter site, which would be only used from December 1st to March 30th. That would be for the storage of gear and oysters. And that is primarily to avoid winter mortality events due to extreme low tides, which are going to occur primarily in the winter. Methods proposed are submerged. There are 80 cages that would be on this operation, as well as a rack and bag system, which would compose a maximum of 1,500 individual bags attached to racks or PVC feet. And also there is the center of the lease, an open area, about 100 square feet, which would be reserved for the bottom planting, primarily of cohogs, but perhaps also oysters. The layout of the farm, as applied for, is on page 25 of the packet. You can see there the layout of the primary site and the winter site. Of particular note with this application is that this would bring, if approved, would bring Point Judith Pond to the maximum 5% of aquaculture for the water body. This is a regulation from section 1.3.1 K4F, the so-called 5% rule. It's the only pond that is as close to 5%. Point Judith. The review of this application began initially with the preliminary determination. That preliminary determination meeting was held with the Narragansett Harbor Commission. There were a few recommendations from staff that came out of the preliminary determination meeting. One was to move the winter site to the edge of the channel as opposed to the center of the channel, so that there would be less of a chance of any conflict with vessels navigating in the months December to March. And also floating gear was considered at the preliminary determined phase. That was abandoned by the applicant as well. The review of this application has gone through the standard process. We've had sign-offs from Division of Marine Fisheries, Fish and Wildlife, for no objections. Will impact. There was a request from Division of Fish and Wildlife for winter working hours on the winter site, which would be December 1st to March 31st. Hours would be limited to 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And this is to avoid possible impacts to waterfowl or hunting activity. Marine Fisheries Council found this application consistent with the competing uses engaged in marine fisheries in the state. That opinion was based on a shellfish, additionally on a shellfish survey, which found a minimal amount of shellfish in this area. And also, this application has received authorization from the Army Corps of Engineers and the Office of Water Resources, saying that water quality is not required. This application, as I mentioned, is quite small. It had no objections from the Marine Fishery Council or DEM, and normally would be eligible for administrative approval under Red Book section 1.1.6. However, this application did receive objections during the 30-day notice period, which is why it's here before you today. Those objections came mostly from the residents of Wallace Drive. And after the 30-day public notice, the applicant was waiting for an appropriate hearing before the council and asked if there was anything we could do to help with application. I recommended to him that he reach out to the objectors, see if there was perhaps a mutually agreeable solution. There were several attempts to bring the parties together over the course of at least 2 years. And then most recently, with the help of the USDA funded mediation program, the applicant and the objectors were able to come together to discuss their concerns. There was an agreement that came from that meeting, I understand. I'll let the parties explain that to you. Only thing I have to say is that I have no problems with any of the conditions that were agreed to. The stipulations that I would recommend if the council does approve the application would be the winter working hours as requested by DEM and a $5,000 performance bond. Staff refers to the council on the objections and the most recent party to entry appearance as well. I've not received any objection from them whatsoever, but I do understand they have some concern.
I think that's it. Okay, any questions from council members of Mr. Getz? Hearing none. Andrew Van Hemmelrick. I swear, Andrew.
I do. Please raise your right hand, sir. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I did.
Please state your name and then spell it for the record.
Andrew Van Hemmelrick. ANDREWVANHEMELRIJCK.
And Mr. Van Hemmelrick, can you just explain in your words the project as it's proposed?
Sure. Yes, I'd also kind of like to introduce myself and kind of explain how I got to where I am now. So I grew up on a pair of properties that my parents and my grandfather owned that are in view of this site. Where year-round residents from my childhood bedroom, I have a view of both of these sites. So I'm very familiar with the typical use of this area, how it's used. I'm gonna use it myself quite a bit. For things from boating to fishing. I'm out there a lot. So I got into oyster farming with my parents. They have a dockside permit. And I didn't really go looking for it. It kind of found me. And the more I got into it, the more I learned about it, the more I kind of fell in love with it. I grew up hearing stories about wild oysters in the pond, like huge populations of scallops, that I never saw personally. I would see them here and there. But the idea of bringing back a species that was once bringing back its filtration efforts greatly appealed to me. And this area I consider my home. It's a place that I care quite a bit about, and just wanted to kind of express my my perspective or my, so for the site, for these parasites, I plan to, have as a primary site and a winter site. Now I've done a, commercial viability, site in this area, for a period of 3 years, to assess the viability of it as a farming site. I've had, this is in the main site, I haven't done anything in the winter site. I had great success. I used the methods that I'm applying to use. I had 0 complaints during the 3-year period. And I, based on the experience that I had, I decided to go forward.
I'm sorry, forward what?
I decided to go forward and apply for a full commercial site. So that process started in 2016 when I initially applied for a farm in the site. It had to be put on hold to assess the amount of acreage that was left in the pond at that point. So at that point, this is going back to Dave Patel's time. I had that's when I started the viability permit. I did that for a period of 3 years. Applied for this initially in 2020, and have been waiting for today since then. And yeah, I guess that's it for me.
Any questions of the applicant? Yes, Mr. Gagnon.
Just explain a little bit of what you do in the winter on the small site, how much activity is out there and what has to be done in terms of working at it.
Sure. So it's, when I had the viability site, I left everything in the I didn't have any problems through the winters while I was there. But they were mild winters, and I know that there is, it could be a couple days low tide. It could. My worry is that they could be exposed to temperatures that would kill them. So the proposed winter site is basically a place for winter storage during a time where the oysters don't grow very much. They're fairly dormant, and I do, so it's not the same level of activity in terms of as they grow, splitting to new bags and keeping up with the rapid growth. It would be more a period of potentially harvesting to bring to market.
So do you store everything that you have in a half-acre site in that winter site, or most of it, or?
The idea was to hopefully be able to, but in my experience, it's not necessary. So I, would like to, would have to kind of develop a process that works, but I imagine leaving a portion on the main site and then potentially focusing on younger or more vulnerable life stages of the shellfish to store them in the winter site. So I would like to limit work there just because it's more difficult to access. It's a deeper area.
Thank you.
Anything else to add at this time? All right. I know there are attorneys involved, and first I'll call upon Attorney Hobson, please.
Thank you. I'm an attorney. My name is Maureen A. Hobson, Hobson. My office is at 222 Jefferson Boulevard, in Warwick. I'm here as a representative for myself because I'm an abutter to this proposed oyster farm, and as well as the spokesperson for all my neighbors here. Ben is correct when he indicated that we filed many objections. I think there were 26 of us that objected when we first heard about the oyster farm. As a result of a mediation that we had in September, we have come to an agreement with the applicant, and we're prepared to, the applicant and we all have agreed that if the assent is deemed to be granted tonight, that the stipulations that we've put together would be included in that. So I would like to pass those out if I could now.
Yes, this is the result of the, I don't consider this so much as an exhibit as it is an agreement that's been reached pursuant to a mediation that CRMC staff participated in.
Right.
This embodies what the mediator came up with on this. It's an agreement between the applicant, Ms. Hobson's group that she is speaking for, and CRMC. So I think what she's going to do is make the representation that the request from her group is that this be made part of any decision that is entered by the council to approve the application, as well as any assents that are issued thereafter. Is that correct?
That's correct. And as was pointed out earlier, I represent the people on Wallace Drive. Mr. Fay represents a different group of people. So we're in favor of this application with these agreed stipulations, and we're prepared to accept what it is. We would ask, though, that whatever coastal assent is granted contain these stipulations. Thank you. And if you'd like, I have the neighbors here. I don't know if you want to enter their names on the record, so that they do, they do agree to what I represented.
Actually, I would, but I think we have a question from Mr. Russolino.
If this is going to be a part of any approval, I'd like to hear some feedback from staff on what's contained in this document.
I left the discussion to this for later, given it wasn't part of my original staff report, but I'm happy to speak to this. The gist of it is that there are two heights of cages that Andrew had proposed, 14-inch high cage and an 18-inch high cage. I believe there are pictures of that in the the first stipulation agreed to is that he would use cages that were no more than 14 inches in height, my understanding. I see this says restrict cages to no more than 8 inches and 14 inches in height. My understanding was that it was limited to 14 inches, that style of cage, which he applies to all cages that would be installed on a primary site would be limited to a height of 14 inches. This is due to the average mean low water depth on the site is about 1.5. So ensuring that the cages were submerged at most tides is a prudent measure. Staff supports that. And yeah, the 18-inch cages would be allowed on the winter site, however. No problem with that. That was how it was applied for. CRMC shall contain a provision that restricts any further expansion of the site and restricts gear change to ensure that it is not floating gear, presumably. That is something we have done in the past. Restrictions on further expansion have been in past approved by this council.
So you have to repeat it, sorry. Restrictions on further expansion
have been stipulated before in approvals on aquaculture farms by this council. And the restriction on the change to floating gear likewise is something that has been employed before and is actually listed on our current guidelines for floating gear. No problem with that. The third condition here is that the site shall be limited to the 4 required corner markers. The buoys on the site shall be restricted to the 4 required corner markers, in addition to no more than 5 temporary buoys. These temporary buoys would be for accessing some of these cages at high tide. So presumably this site would be worked mostly at low tide, If need be, and a cage needed to be retrieved at high tide, one of these temporary buoys could be employed, but there would be no more than 5 of them. I don't see an issue with that as long as the applicant is in agreement. All cages should be removed and cleaned on dry land, not in Point Judith Pond. That is a best management practice, that you not introduce the waste or the biofouling. You're cleaning it into the water. It has a minimal effect, but it is identified as an industry best practice to do it offsite. I have no problem with that calculation. And if yes, so the CRMC essential stipulate that any changes occurring on the site, cages breaking free and or floating will subject to immediate review. If there is anything happening that is inconsistent with an ascent on a aquaculture site, it is subject to immediate review. So I see no problem with that. It is a standard aquaculture stipulation that if gear does break free, that the applicant has 30 days to return said gear back to the lease or be in violation of his lease and ascent. If staff is aware that gear has broken free, staff makes every effort to ensure that gear is returned as soon as possible. Well before the 30 days, in almost all cases. And the final condition, the CRMC assent will contain a restriction. Said if the applicant sells, transfers, subleases, releases, abandons, the lease will continue to be restricted in this manner. That is true. Well, first, if the lease is abandoned, it no longer exists. So that would not be an issue. You cannot sublet or a bar without permission from CRMC or transfer without permission from CRMC. In any of those cases, you are operating under the current ascent anyways. I don't believe there's a need to reiterate that specifically in the stipulations, but our regulations and practices would cover that stipulation.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gomez.
What's the condition of abandonment? Is there a regulation on that or a stipulation or how many days without being on site?
Yeah.
And that's what we would be. I'm thinking of the case that we had, it was over Block Island, we had problems with gear up on the beach and, and I'm trying to figure out if it prevents that, which I think it does.
Yeah, so our regulations are very clear on this matter. If you do not use your farm for a year, you'd be subject to revocation.
At which point, if it wasn't removed by the owner of the farm, the state would remove it. Is that
We
correct?
would, and that would be the purpose for the $5,000 performance bond,
Okay,
which is a standard bond for a site, any site that has gear. Our performance bond in the state range from the minimum $5,000 to I think our maximum one is $40,000. But that performance bond is very maintained and durations of no shorter than 18 months. Usually we like to see them for 3 years in case of such abandonment, or if say there was a violation of the lease and we had to terminate the lease. It would give the state the resources to hire someone to do that.
do you routinely go out and take a look at all the farms, or even including a small one like this?
Yeah, so I am required, not just by my duties here at CRMC, but also through a memorandum of understanding with DEM, that I do inspect each and every farm in the state at least once a year in the field. And then again, we do a file inspection, say, to ensure that the conditions in the file are representative of the conditions on the water as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay,
Before Ms. Hobson completes her presentation, I think she offered to have the members of the audience that are in her group, not to testify, but to just identify themselves as being a part of this group that has made this agreement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I think that's a good idea for record purposes, if those members of the audience wouldn't mind identifying themselves.
Francis Flynn, FRANCIS, FLYNN. At first, I wasn't agreeable to this, but then after we met with the mediator, and organized it with the mediator reached out to the rest of us. We sat down, we heard Andrew's side, Andrew heard ours. I think as we went through, came up with a document that Lauren just said, very acceptable to me and my wife, Susan Flynn, to move forward.
Thank you.
Susan Flynn, SUSAN, FLYE. Kathleen Windsor, KATHLEN
Peter Stratton, PETER,
William Lawler, LAWLER.
Marshall Lawler, MARCIA, LAWLER. Eileen Stratton, EILEEN, SRACA.
Mark Houston,
that everyone,
That's everyone, except I have several people who could not be here tonight. They contacted me by email and indicated they were also in favor. Eric Edison, HEDISON, and John and Patricia Morin, MORIN. And these folks, including the two I just mentioned, the three I just mentioned, we are all residents of Marlis Drive.
thank you all for coming out tonight, as well
Thank
as
you for hearing
yourself. At this time, I'll call on Attorney Fay. Good evening, Counselor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Fay of Murphy and Fay LLP. I represent a group of entities and individuals who basically live on Comfort Island. I'm just going to identify them for the record, and I also have my affidavits from these individuals, so bear with me. The first entity is the Carol Newman for the Carol Newman Trust. That's the property located at 8 Florence Road. It's map lot R237.
Mr. Fay, I'm sorry, would you mind spelling it for the record?
Sure. Carol Newman, who's the trustee, is CAROL, Newman, NULMAN.
Thank you.
And that's for the Carol Newman Trust at that particular property. The next one is Carol Newman, trustee of the Carol Newman Trust. The property is located on Edith Road. It's map lot R2406A. The next is Carol Newman as trustee of the Carol Newman Trust for the property located on Edith Road, map lot R2409. The next is Carol Newman as trustee of the Carol B. Newman Family Trust for the property located at 21 Edith Road, map lot R2405. The next is Carol Newman as trustee of the Joel S. Newman Family Trust for the property located at Florence Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island, map lot R2375. Next is Carol Newman as trustee of the Rose Newman Park Foundation. That property is located at 1460 Ocean Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island, map lot M162. Next one is Carol Newman as trustee of the Saul Newman Trust. The property is located on Florence Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island, map lot R2374. The next is Bradley Waugh as sole member of Northrop Realty LLC. Bradley Waugh is BRADLEY, middle initial J, last name Wah, W-A-U-G-H, Northrop Realty, Northrip, REALTY LLC. That's the property located at 13 Edith Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island. And the next one is Bradley Watt individually as a property owner at 17 Edith Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island. At this time, I'd like to introduce as marked exhibits to support the objection, the affidavits from each one of these entities and individuals with their objection and the basis. I have copies for everyone if everyone wants one.
This is a little late.
I have copies if everyone wants to take a look at it.
Submission requirements.
Oh, 7 days.
There's actually, for new evidence, there's a deadline to submit.
Well, that's one of the issues I have with the case. It's a whole notice argument that these individuals, most of the ones identified, and I'm gonna focus on the Edith Road ones. You still have the map, but if you picture Comfort Island and Edith Road. Edith Road, all these individuals, entities basically own that whole side, the west side of Comfort Island. That's Comfort Island. That's basically where this summer location of the oyster farm is gonna be located, just to, I guess, just to the west of that. So, they never received any kind of notice, none of them, in regard to this proceedings over the last 2.5 years. Now, I'm not saying I didn't have notice of this tonight. I was made aware through my clients of the hearing the last time we were here. Some third party and told them about the hearing. That's the first they learned of it. I was here, I don't know the date, sometime in September, about a month ago, just to find out what was going on. At that time, the system allowed a continuance so I could have an opportunity to speak with some of the parties and then come back tonight. I'll get to what happened in the meantime. But because none of these parties, and again, these are the closest people to where this oyster farm is going to be located, were ever notified of this. They haven't had an opportunity to do anything, to participate in any of the hearings up until this date over the last 2.5 years. So I understand what you're saying. There's deadlines, there's evidentiary deadlines, and if they were notified, I would have been here. This would have been done 2.5 years ago. But because there was no notice, there's no opportunity to do so. So again, I'm objecting on behalf of them tonight to the application being granted. And I would like to have these introduced. They're just affidavits indicating where, what I put into the record already, where they own, what property they own, and their objection to the application go forward tonight.
What's council's opinion on that?
Well, I want to address the notice issues first.
Okay.
And this is what I'm looking at. And I know that Mr. Fay is going to cite to something else. But for purposes of tonight's hearing, notification is under section 1.5.1 B. And that is to immediate abutters on this. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, aside from what the requirements are under the management procedures, and also the Administrative Procedures Act, there's a question of constructive notice here. Now, Mr. Fay is correct. He was here last month. And I know that he came at the last second because he didn't have a suit on. But he said didn't have any notice. And that's the reason that the council continued the matter to tonight, 1 month, by the way. So, what I take a look at is the case law on this. And it comes down to personal attendance at a meeting of a governmental body constitutes a waiver of the right to object to any defect concerning the notice of any proceedings occurring at that meeting. That's Gardner, Gardner, versus the Cumberland Town Council. That's 826 A.2nd 972. That's a Rhode Island Supreme Court case from 2003. And that's quoting Graziano versus the Rhode Island State Lottery Commission, 810 A.2nd 215 RI 2002. And there's a whole line of cases on that. And I think because the council, Mr. Izzy was the lawyer on the Graziano case. I'm told. But there is a line of cases that I'm sure he'll agree with on this, that personal attendance at a meeting, particularly one that was continued for a month, waives any alleged defects in notice. And I think that's important to take a look at. I know Mr. Fay has another argument on that. I'm not gonna put words in his mouth. Let him say what he has to say, and I'll reply to that one too.
Yeah, and in that case, obviously, if this goes forward, this application is granted tonight, there's gonna be an automatic in the Superior Court, and that legal argument will be addressed. I think that case is legally distinguished from what happened in this case. I'm not gonna get into it right now. But just to address what Mr. DeCesso said about the month, I did. Well, first of all, let me back up. That agreement that the mediator, they came up with this agreement between some of the other property owners. Again, none of my clients participated in that. The first time I found out about that was when I through a third party. Again, no notice from CRMC, no notice from the applicant. This was like a third party notified my clients that something was going on at CRMP that could affect them. That was the first time I learned of that mediated agreement. We didn't participate in that mediated agreement. And you know what's happened with mediated agreements with CRMC, that all the parties don't have an opportunity to participate in. I did reach out to all the parties over this last month and indicated to the applicant and Maureen that I would be open to sitting down. I'm always open, Anthony knows this, I'm always open to trying to resolve the case without having to litigate it. I would love to do that. The only problem is, again, because my clients had no notice, I have no file. I had admittedly put a request out to get a complete copy of the file and to give Mrs. DeCesso credit and Ms. Turner credit. They did put it together probably quicker than most people could have put it together, but I literally got it, I think this past, I have it in my file, I'll have it, and I have copies. I think it's this last Thursday or Friday or something last week, so I haven't had that much time. And I don't even know if it's a complete file, to tell you the truth. When I was sitting in the back there and I think Mr. Goach was citing pages on the application. You know, I don't even have that in what was provided to me. So in any event, I just wanted some opportunity to get enough information together so I could participate in some kind of mediation. But, and again, I'm not faulting Mr. DeCesso, I'm not faulting Ms. Turner. Again, they had to pull it together. I know it was complete, but I only got that last week. And what I had spoken to Maureen and Andrew about was, look, I'll sit down and talk to anyone, but I just need a little time to put this together. There's no way I can go through this and participate in a mediation with any good faith unless I have everything, and I didn't have everything. Unfortunately, the applicant didn't agree to continue it past the state, so here we are tonight. So I'm not, I didn't purposely, try to blow that up. I don't have it, I don't have everything I need to participate in the mediation. But in regard to the notice issue, yeah, I'm familiar with the code. I'm also familiar with all the statutory provisions in notice, and I'm sure this council is familiar with the notice. There are notice provisions to any abutters in a situation like this with an agricultural lease. The code speaks to the immediate abutters shall also be notified, except when the applicant requires noticing more than 50 abutters. Well, in this case, when I went through the file that was provided me, I think there was a notice to, couldn't have been more than 20, 25 people. Obviously, my clients weren't in that list. So we don't have a situation where there's 50 more abutters. But when they talk about immediate abutters, there's no one more immediate than my clients. I mean, if you look at, I don't know, if you can use Andrew's picture, but if you look at Comfort Island, again, the road on the west side is where all my clients own that property, which is about as close as you can get to where this oyster farm is supposed to be. Matter of fact, when I went through a CRMC file that was provided to me, it did have some pictures, which I'm assuming is the location of where the oyster farm is supposed to be, and Comfort Island. And the numbers here is only 543 feet. That would be looks like the southern side. And the other picture in here was the northern side of the island. And that was only, I think, 591 feet. So my clients are very close to where this is supposed to be, specifically well within 1,000 feet. The reason I bring up the 1,000 feet is because the rule talks immediate abutters, but there's no real definition of what an immediate abutter is in the rules. So where would you go? The statutory provisions don't have that kind of definition. You go to see what CRMC has. Now, CRMC's file, which is their guideline to applications for the agricultural leases, are very specific. Mind me if I sit down, can I read this? This again, this is from the application materials provided to anyone that's looking for an agricultural lease right now. For the preliminary determination, okay, now I'm skipping over the commercial viability policy because that's optional. I don't know if it was done or not in this case because, we didn't receive any notice, but the preliminary determination, there's a required notice to individuals. And it says at least 30 days before the meeting, the town, all state and federal regulatory agencies, the CRMC agricultural listserv, and all property owners within 1,000 feet of the proposal are notified that your preliminary application will be discussed in an informal, non-regulatory setting. Again, they're within 1,000 feet. They never received any kind of notice way back when that should have been done. Another point, and I don't know where this is going to go. I'm looking into it right now in regard to notice. Where the summer location is, my understanding, in the deeper channel, because obviously the oysters have to be in, they can't, the cold will kill the oyster. All I know about oysters, I know the cold is a killer. They need to be warmer. So the channel for the winter is obviously deeper. This is near a sandbar for the summer ones. That channel is right in the area of Frank Maz's Point View Marina. It's on the opposite side of Comfort Island, right across the way. It's close to where they're planning on putting this. I know Mr. Maz is going to have an issue with that being right basically in front of the marina, with him coming in and out of that channel on winter, working on docks and what have you. But also, one of his tenants right now is the U.S. Navy. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. I don't know if the U.S. Navy was notified about this proposal and what they plan on doing on that channel where they're going to be working. Right now, my understanding is they're working on autonomous underwater vehicles on that site. And what that means and getting in and out of there with those things and how this oyster farm could affect that with putting it in that channel there, I have no idea. We didn't have any time to look into it because we never received any notice. I don't know if the Navy was ever noticed. Maybe they should have been noticed. In any event, there's, under Section D, the formal Category B application for agricultural activities within tidal waters, the town and state federal regulatory agencies and all property owners with 1,000 feet of the proposal are notified. Again, nothing like that happened in this case. Going further along in the materials, when anyone's supposed to follow these checklists and rules with CRMC, again, once the full application is received and processed, this is on page 15 of the paper, CRMC. Again, this is, for the record's clear, this is Coastal Resources Management Council Guide to Commercial Agriculture Applications. Your materials, I'm sure you're all familiar with it. Page 15, the town and all state and federal regulatory agents are notified, as well as all property owners and agriculturists with 1,000 feet of the proposal. I have nothing in what that was provided to me that notice was taken care of. The applicant objectors and supporters of the application are given a chance to voice their opinions to the council. Again, that's done after they receive notice. No notice was, my clients never received a notice, never had an opportunity to voice their opinions or concerns in regard to this project from the beginning to the end. In regard to the agriculture checklist, it talks about a location map, a 1,000-foot continuous area map with all necessary information. Again, I was looking for that and what was provided to me is I don't have that. So I don't know if it was done, if it wasn't done, but it wasn't provided to me in my request for all the documents. It talks about how you set up this area that's checking. It says click the draw mode icon in the landowner notification box on the home screen of the map and upload proposed lease site shapefile tab. Draw the proposed lease on the map with the drawing tool and the program will automatically generate the 1,000 area, the site with a yellow line. I didn't see anything like that in any of the materials that were provided to me. Under the agriculture application instructions on page 18, section 6, site plans, be sure to include appropriate scale and distance from the site to the nearest shoreline. And then going down paragraph 9, page 19, 1,000 contiguous area map with all necessary information. See checklist B. Again, I don't see any of that in what I have. And again, no notice to my clients. But the materials that CRMC puts out to the public is replete with this 1,000-foot notice arrangement. Now, again, I'm coming into this late. I'm not even sure when this application was applied. I don't even think I have the full application, the materials that was supplied to me. If the position is that what I'm reading from today wasn't in place 2 or 2.5 years ago when this application started, I'm not aware of it, and I'm not aware that the rules are any different then as they are now in regard to the notice requirements. If that's the case, if someone wants to make an argument that this application process sets forth all these notification rules from CRMC was different, you know, when this application was submitted, then I'd like to get a copy of that so I have an opportunity to go through it. Again, this is what's on the site right now. They don't have the older one. And I can't imagine that if there is an older set, that it doesn't contain some kind of notification to the closest abutters. Because again, when you look at the code, and the code is going to trump that application process, it talks about notifying the closest abutters. My clients are the closest abutters, no notification. So, again, from a legal process standpoint, notice is it's not followed properly. It wasn't followed properly in this case, either by the applicant or CRMC, I don't know. But my clients never received notice. That's a fatal flaw. And I can tell you there's a ton of case law on that. And if this is granted tonight, then obviously the only other place I have to go is to the Superior Court, and then those will be the legal arguments I'll be making. But I would ask at this time that this application for the notice issue in itself, that it be denied, because a lot of the parties that should have been notified weren't notified. Again, I'd like to come back to the affidavit. I mean, I'd like to have Mr. DeSisto at least take a look at it and then make a decision whether or not it can submit this.
I will, but since we're talking about adhering to our reg, there are some deadlines there too. And while you're coming up and having me take a look at the affidavits, is it appropriate, Mr. Chair, to have Mr. Getch reply to some of the factual allegations that were made just now by Mr. Fay?
Yes, please. Regarding the closest properties to this application.
Correct, yes.
As the applicant provided in his application, citing page 21 of the council packet.
Mine not numbered, so I don't know if I have one.
This is page 21 of the council packet, published on the CRMC website on our calendar page.
I think that's the photo I referred to earlier. Definitely.
Well, as the applicant had indicated in the required form, which isn't sure, the closest properties are on Mullis Drive, about 411 feet away. Also, staff's
thank you.
Staff's understanding of the treaty of the butter is a property which you share a boundary with. This application is in State Waters. As I said, about 411 feet from the closest shore, and therefore does not share a property with any private property.
That, again, I disagree with Mr. Goch's interpretation. That's not a factual thing. That's a legal argument. I think clearly, I've never had a case.
I wasn't talking, sorry.
Oh, I thought you were done because you paused. Well,
No,
go on,
you turned to me, that's all.
No, you stopped, but go ahead.
I speak slowly, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The notification procedures for aquaculture applications were presented in February of 2022. The updated application package was posted to our website, I think about a month later. At the time the application for this in June of 2020, there were all normal notification procedures were followed. I'm done.
Oh, you're done. Okay, again, I don't even know what those normal notification processes are. I don't
As outlined in our management procedures, which you cited earlier.
I have that. So I disagree. And again, they're the closest abutters, a group of again, the regs are going to trump what you use in that package anyways. And the regs talk about the closest abutters. my argument is gonna be that these people on Comfort Island, on Edith Road, are some of the closest abutters to where this oyster farm is gonna be. Now, if CRMC wants to take the position, because of what Mr. Ghosh said, that you have no notification requirements to these closest abutters, I know he's making a legal argument that they're not abutters because it's in the water or something like that. Fine. Then why do the new rules, not rules, but why do your new packets start 1,000 feet from the location of the potential oyster farm? Why do the new rules say that it wasn't applicable before then? They just made that up after the fact. Of course, it only makes sense that the closest people, as in the regs, should be notified this so they can be heard. They weren't notified. In my 30 years of doing this, one of the first things I say to all my clients on either side, whatever the notice requirements are, is reach out to the abutters or the people close enough to where this project is going on, whether on land or agriculture, as a courtesy to avoid things like this. That wasn't done. You don't have to do it, but it only makes common sense to do that as a courtesy. Clearly have to follow legal procedures of notice when you're dealing with something like this. It wasn't done in this case. And clearly, if my clients were notified, they would have been here 2.5 years ago. Do I know how that would have come out? No, but they didn't have the opportunity to be heard. And without the opportunity to be heard, to hear the expert, respond to the expert, get their own experts, get their own factual witness, you've gone through it 100 times. This proceeding, day one, today, is flawed. And I can't imagine that if this goes up, that it's gonna be upheld. So I would ask that this application not be granted for those reasons. I would ask that the affidavits be submitted.
Are any of your clients here tonight?
No, they couldn't be here tonight, hence the affidavits.
Every single one of them?
There's only, technically,
There's actually two. And if I may, I've read the affidavits. Those affidavits reflect the legal arguments that Mr. Fay has made that they didn't receive notice. And I think that, you know, they missed the deadline here, but you can take the representations from Mr. Fay that his clients don't have notice. You can, because he's made those arguments before you. Now, I'm assuming that your presentation is complete now.
complete. And again, I appreciate this, but I'm sorry, Mr.
Okay. You leave it there.
I just, if it's okay with the board, I hate to jump in on this, but I have one question for Mr. Getch. The United States Navy argument, are you aware of that situation over there?
I am not.
Okay, does the United States Navy have a presence over there, to your knowledge?
As aquaculture coordinator, I have no doubt.
Okay. Okay. I just want to say a few things just to follow up on what Mr. Fay has, his excellent presentation. But I have some points to make too, on this. And by the way, I was reading the affidavits. Mr. Getch, this guide was developed in 2022.
Yes.
When was the application filed?
I believe it was June of 2020.
Okay. What the board what's the council needs to know is that the rules and regulations that are in place at the time the application is filed are the ones that control the application process through. This application has taken 3 years to get here. Now, this guidebook came in later on, but like any other administrative body, any other quasi-judicial body, the rules and regulations that were in effect at the time the application was filed control straight through, even if there's subsequent changes. That's the first thing. Now, what Mr. Fay is talking about is at the preliminary determination stage anyway. This application is going beyond that. So I think he agrees that 1.1.5 controls here. Now you have the statement from Mr. Getch, who's the staff person that handled this matter, as to the relative distances here, and that's his job on this. The final thing is, and I just, you know, it's an excellent presentation. But I think what you need to know is the application was continued for a month. Mr. Fay is here. Under the Gardner case, that waives any defects, any alleged defects, which I don't think there are, in notice. You can do whatever you want. You have the agreement with Ms. Hobson and the group that you have here. There's an objection by Mr. Fay on behalf of his clients, and he's asking that the application be denied due to the defective notice. That's the issue that you have. Issue number one is whether or not you're going to accept this mediated settlement in an approval or deny it for the reasons that are asserted by Mr. Fay on notice. That's what you have to decide.
And I'm sorry, this is.
But you're killing me.
This is my only shot here. I think it's imperative, and I'm not allowed to question Mr. Gosh, but if there was a different set, and again, the code, I agree, the code and the statutory provisions are gonna trump, but the application is just some kind of guidance to what an immediate abutter is, okay, the 1,000-foot thing. I don't know why that would be in here and not in the old one, but I would suggest strongly that before this council does anything, we should all take a look at the CRMC Management Council Guide to Commercial Agriculture Applications, a packet, the one that was in effect at the time that it was put in. I don't know how you can make a decision with what's seen in there. What if it's exactly as the same as what I just quoted from the new one?
We can keep going back and forth all night.
Yeah, but
That argument's already been made. And I'm not gonna change anything I said, and I don't wanna repeat myself because I'm afraid Ray might throw me over the railing over there. So I think you understand what the arguments are, you've heard what you've had to hear, and that's the discrete issue that you have to address now. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
So yes.
I'd like to make one point of clarification. The new guide to aquaculture applications does not use the word abutter. It uses coastal property owners within a certain radius. That's all.
Mr. Flynn.
My question is, what's the most expeditious way of resolving this? If we approve this tonight, and an appeal is filed to Superior Court, that could drag on who knows how long. As opposed to, if we were to delay it, it's been going on since 2020. It was delayed another month. And the notice issue, no matter how you look at it, it could be completely obliterated. Would that potentially benefit the applicant more than an appeal to Superior Court?
Well, I don't represent the applicant, and I'm not gonna speak for the applicant. What you have here is, there's already been one mediation. I think what concessions are made, and that's why Ms. Hobson, who's also a very good lawyer, is accommodated on this. The next question is there always gonna be an appeal on this? And that's not something I think that should enter into your consideration. I think what you need to do is to make the decision as to whether or not approve with the mediated settlement or deny, which is what Mr. Fay is asking for. He's not asking for a continuance. He's asking for it to be denied based on the what he alleges are flaws in the notice. If you want to do something else, that's up to you guys also. But to me, that's what's been presented by applicant, one interested party and another interested party. That's what you're looking at.
And just so it's clear, again, in regard to the continuance, again, I did put it on the record earlier. I know I'm repeating myself, but I was open to try to sit down and try to resolve this thing with my clients. I don't know if they will or they won't. You know what I mean? Again, I have to get the materials, I have to sit down with them. You know, I was asking for additional time because again, we weren't involved in that mediation at all, nothing. And I did put out to both Maureen and Andrew that if they're willing, and there's a woman, Lauren Portaro, who I guess is the mediator. I spoke to her also and said, and she's on my behalf spoke to the other parties. I said, look, give me some more time. If they'll agree to a continuance, I'll get whatever I need to get. And then I have no problem. You know, I said before, I don't litigate cases just to litigate cases. Stephen knows this too. You know, and if there can be a resolution, I'll try to resolve the case. But in light of the fact that I was not granted that courtesy of continuing it by the parties involved, which is their right to do that, I had no other choice than to come here tonight and, you know, put my argument on the record. And because of the fatal flaw of the notice, the application should be denied.
So,
I have a question. I'm not an attorney, so I'm a little bit confused. This has been put off for a long time, continued for a long time, and if we hypothetically approve with the conditions that staff had made earlier, then it clearly go to Superior Court, and then it'll be remanded back to us. In all likelihood, would that sound right? If an alternative B would be if we were to continue and allow him to get the information that he's looking for, we could rehear the case in a rather shorter period of time than it would take to go through Superior Court and get remanded back to us.
Well,
Would that be the more logical approach?
That's always the question, and that's one of the things that I said to the council when you continued it the last time. The other thing is Mr. Fay's an excellent lawyer. And he was referencing the fact that I just had a trial in court in front of Judge Stern. And what I said was, I always admire lawyers that say things are black and white. I'm going to court, I'm gonna win. I'm not like that. Where do I live in? Because I'm an old guy? Gray, just like the hair on my head. I don't know what's gonna happen to court. I know Mr. Fay saying, look, I'm gonna go up, I'm gonna win. I don't know that. Nobody knows it. The only person who knows is gonna be the judge, whoever it is. So I don't know that. I'm also looking past Mr. Fay to the applicant. And they,
delay.
Well, here's the thing. I gotta say this, the council's very sensitive to interested parties because they have due process rights. And that's the argument, by the way. The argument is at basis, this due process is being denied to his client. That's what he's saying. But the applicant has due process rights too. I'm looking at them. I don't think they want the continuance. And I think that's something that the council has to take into consideration for that. At some point, it's not that. I think they want to get a decision tonight, and then if it goes to court, it goes to court.
But if it goes to court, there's a likelihood that it would be remanded back to us at some point.
I don't know that.
The delay would be much longer than if we'd have granted continuance and hear it in 60 or 90 days.
That there's definitely a risk to that. But then again, you hear it in 60 to 90 days, whatever the decision is, and then there's another appeal, and then it goes to court instead of the discrete issue. Those are things we never know.
Okay. Mr. Russell, just so I'm clear, okay? I stated clear, I'm always open to try to resolve anything, but I'm not saying here, Anthony knows this, I'm not saying my clients will agree to what's in that mediation statement if I get the additional time. I can't say that, you know what I mean? Because I don't have everything. I have to sit down with them. We have to go through the process. It gets remediated. And could we basically there's going to be, if we're given more time to try to resolve this, there's going to be only two outcomes. One, we're going to come in with another mediated agreement. It might be a little different, but it will be agreed to by my clients as well as Maureen's people. Or two, if I can't come to that, then Anthony knows I'm gonna be basically, I don't even have to reiterate what I did today. I'm gonna say, we don't have a deal, just give us a decision. But I don't wanna make it seem like I'm saying that if I get more time, I can't speak to that, because again, my clients have to be there. We have to go through the process. I'll do everything I can to try to resolve the case, but ultimately it's up to my clients whether or not they'll accept the compromises that would come from that mediation. So again, I think it's always helpful to try to resolve the case. I always try to do it. I requested more time from the parties. They denied it. That's why I'm here today.
Can we just float, just an idea out there, the mediation that was handed out, the stipulation that has been agreed to between the two parties seems to be very relevant and should be included in any motion we make. Is it fair to, at this point, to allow for a similar mediation, given a certain time frame along the same lines of this, to include this, and then allow coastal the resources staff to take those results, meld them together and approve it, or does it have to come back?
Mediation has to be by agreement, and I think Mr. Fay has said, and by the way, I agree with him on, you never know what's gonna happen if you give him more time.
Yeah.
I mean, they just might just show up and say we have a bunch of objections. But the applicant has indicated that he does not want to have another mediation. He had a mediation, he agreed to it with Ms. Hobson, He doesn't want to have another mediation. So I think that's why I'm saying your choices tonight are deny based on what Mr. Fay has told you, or approve based on the agreement that was arrived at between the applicant, Ms. Hobson, staff was there, and the neighbors that showed up. I think that's what you're looking at.
And I would just maybe ask Andrew one more time so he understands again, if it's a, this is not, by no means am I threatening, I'm just doing my job. That if it is approved, I don't know where else to go, the Superior Court, there will be I will file, and Anthony's right, I didn't mean to. I've won cases, I've lost cases, I think this is a strong case, but you never know what's gonna happen in Superior Court, but nobody wants to litigate something for 2.5, 3 years, you know what I mean? It's expensive for both sides, my clients and the other side. So maybe Andrew should be asked one more time if he wants to agree to give us some more time to try to mediate it, or just go ahead, Anthony's saying just vote it up and that'll be it.
So if we were to approve this application tonight with the stipulations and the mediation agreements, and then if Mr. Fay's clients and the applicant and the other objectors wanted to voluntarily sit down and mediate on their own time without us, you can come back in and modify a request for modification, can't you?
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God, Maureen.
I'll be brief. I just want to say that our client, my clients, people in my neighborhood are eager for a decision on this evening too.
Just a point of clarification, and maybe I shouldn't stick my foot in this, but the issue of the United States Navy is a red herring. I spent 57 years working on autonomous underwater vehicles. I know where the Navy works. I know you can go into Potter's Cove and take your boats right up against exercises over there. A lot of the experiments are done down to the Cape, on shore bases and things. And so I'm a little leery about what this real Navy operation is over there. Having retired from this operation 2 years ago, I know of no such big deal going on in that area, but I'm just speaking. So I think that's just using the word Navy is just a little bit of a scare tactic.
No, that's not my point at all. My point again is notice. The Navy was never noticed. I'm not trying to create any kind of scare tactic.
Right. I think you've heard everything you have to hear. Decision-making time.
Right. We have before us, the application of
I'm sorry, but I need to have it, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. In regard to the affidavits, I need a decision if they're gonna come in or not.
No.
So it's part of the record that you won't allow them, that's fine.
That's correct, yes.
No, I get it.
And it's based on the fact that you've made the representations, and I've told the board that pretty much these affidavits reflect the statements that you've made,
No, that's fine.
which are the basis of your objection.
I get it. I just needed it for the record.
You want the he wants to say something now.
Andrew, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was hoping a few quick comments.
Okay, come on up, champ.
So I just wanted to say that it feels a lot like the last time we met. You know, today's date was set by Mr. Fay, and I agreed to it. So I just kind of don't know when, you know, that would end. The other thing I'd like to say is that the USDA mediators reached out to these two objectors and Mr. Fay multiple times, and they refused to enter into mediation with us. You know, we, you know, have an agreement that we would like them to look at it, see what they think, add to it. I've just gotten a refusal through the mediators. I haven't spoken with Mr. Fay directly. Additionally, I'd like to say, after initial meeting date a month ago, I was made aware that Brad was one of the objectors, and we have mutual acquaintances. I reached out to him and I had a conversation with him. He told me that he's been aware of the farm the whole time. He said that he's building $1.5 million summer house there, and he doesn't want to look at the buoys that he's been looking at for 3 years. And he told me about the Navy. He told me, you know, several of the arguments that Mr. Fay has just made. And the last point I'd just like to make is that the channel that is here in the winter is not an officially designated channel. It's not marked by anybody. It's not maintained. It's a natural channel that is only accessible by shallow draft boats. When I initially put out the preliminary determination, I was contacted by Mr. Ian Campbell, who uses the place daily, to tend his oyster farm over on High Point after he fishes in the morning in Galilee. And he reached out to me personally, we spoke, and he told me about his concerns. And I had the buoys out there. He was able to navigate past them, no problem. So it's basically what you would see if it were to be active. The other thing I'd like to bring up, last thing, is that entire channel currently, right at this moment, if you go there, is lined with buoys from whelk fishermen. They'll put their whelk traps along the deeper water in this channel. So my 4 buoys, or 5 buoys, are outnumbered in that area. So those are just the.
Thank you. It's appropriate to have the applicant have the last say. I think it's time to make the decision.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. Is the council in a position to make a motion? Mr. Gomez?
Yeah, I move approval of the applicant with the condition that the stipulations be included. Seems to be a very fair agreement.
In the decision in the assent? And that's based on the findings in the findings of fact in the staff report.
The motion has been made as indicated by Mr. Gomez, seconded by Mr. Russolino. Any discussion? Mr. Flynn?
The mediation items and the staff.
Just to be clear, it's the 2 stipulations in the staff report, and the 30 was the exhibit handed out to all of us.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Motion made and seconded. I'll now poll the council. Mr. Russolino?
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon?
Aye.
Mr. Flynn?
Aye.
Mr. Izzy?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
I too, Raymond Coyer, vote aye. The application is approved with the stipulations as indicated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
I don't have anything else, right?
Whatever you gotta do.
Oh, you know what? It's, did you give me, who gave you that?
Having no further business, motion made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, don't oppose.
We lost Jack.
Okay.
Laura, is it okay